It was just a few days ago when I saw extra credits talk about the uncanny when it comes to horror and horror games. At around the 1 minute mark, they introduced the idea of psychological horror that, quote, sticks with you long after the experience is over. They then go into deconstructing the difference between horror games that leave you feeling safer in the world that you live in versus utilizing the uncanny to put us in a place of post-experience unease. It was a super solid episode that I suggest you check out. However, after finishing it, something didn't sit right with me. Something felt missing. And after spending a day pondering it, I came to this conclusion. And Dan, James, if you guys are watching this, I subject this thesis to you for your consideration. A truly good horror game cannot be created or even systematically defined because horror in itself is 100% subjective by culture and more specifically by age. So what do I mean by that? That is to say that though it is possible to scare a great number of people with the same psychological or jump scare tactics, you will never be able to inflict that feeling of post-game horror to 100% of an audience. Honestly, I'd be surprised if you get around 80%. And the big reason for that is what we as an individual fear is derived from our own traumatic experiences, most of the time as we're children. From a cultural standpoint, it's pretty obvious that people of different culture are going to be terrified by different things. I think back to my English teaching days. During Japanese school festivals, haunted houses are commonplace, and I could not help but laugh at my high school kids who freaked over okikus, nagakubis, and the other limitless plethora of monsters Japan had to offer. And thinking back as a high school kid myself, this stuff would startle me, but not give me the feeling of post-experience horror. So what about my own culture? When I look at classic Western horror movies, they don't scare me at all. They sicken me since so many of them are blood and gore fests of murder, but it's not scary. It's just vomit-inducing and cruel in my eyes. Plus, Jason without his mask looks stupid, Freddy just comes across as a chuckle-headed narcissist, and Pennywise? It's Tim Curry as a clown. Just come on with that. Bozo the Clown was more terrifying. But that's the thing. I'm looking at these characters as a rational adult, not an impressionable child. So what scared me as a kid? Early Sesame Street and animatronics. Oh lordy, especially early Sesame Street. Seriously, have you seen this stuff before? Remember Twin Beaks? Count to 10 with Nobody? That skit that had all of the dancing toys, space shuttles, and that freaking terrifying skeletal robot? Anyone? Oh yeah, and let's not forget Cookie Monster with teeth. Growing up as an 80s and 90s kid with my experience at Chuck E. Cheese didn't help either. I grew up in the most terrifying era of animatronics. If there's anything that's terrifying by the way of the uncanny, these guys were it. So when Markiplier released his first video about Five Nights at Freddy's, I figured it wasn't going to be too bad. I mean, I've sat through stuff like Amnesia, and while it was really chilling, it didn't last post-game. Halfway through the video, though, I had to stop. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my head. I was terrified. And I wasn't even playing the game, I was watching it. This game, I will never play. Never. Not because I think it might be bad, not because it's a jump scare fest. I will never play it because it takes everything I feared and dreaded as a child and literally throws it in my face. It takes everything that turned shadows into claws, everything that turned closets into gateways of hell, everything that made me hide under the covers and hope that I would live to see the next morning into a concentrated experience. Years of nightmares are thrown at me in a 2-hour experience. The brilliance of this game is not that it creates an experience that we have a lingering dread of later. It's something that unlocks a chest of darkness and evil that we thought we cast aside when we grew up. I say that confidently because I know there are people who think this game is a joke. I've seen article after article trying to dissect this game and present it as a jokey haunted house simulator for the PC. These are people that do not obviously share the same sort of horrific experiences that I did growing up. They're not afraid of sunken, black-eyed animatronics, but they are afraid of something. To me, the biggest challenge a horror game developer will face is the rationality of the adult human mind. The adult mind is rock solid and impenetrable to nearly any attempt to horrify and traumatize with unfamiliar tropes of horror. To not only scare, but to keep that fear in the gamer's mind long after the power is turned off, you have to attack the mind of the child. You have to latch onto what terrified them when they were impressionable and exploit it viciously. Nobody is afraid of everything, but everyone is afraid of something.